Hello, darlings, and welcome to my podcast, Treading the Boards to Business, where we talk all things from sparkle and spotlight to the boardroom and beyond. My name is Shelley Otway-Wood, former actress, singer and dancer, and now CEO of Stepping Out Stars of Tomorrow Theatre School, The Costume Cupboard, and Dance and Performing Arts Business Coach. I am going to share with you some fantastic showbiz stories with my friends and colleagues about their careers in performing arts and beyond. So let's open these curtains and step into the spotlight.
Hi, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, darling. How are you? It's
all good, thank you. I'm so glad we're doing this.
And guess what?
Amazing.
Laptop today. Every day's a win.
How long did it take to get fixed?
Oh, they did it that day, so I got it back on the Saturday. So welcome to Treading the Boards to Business with the fabulous Damian Sandys. I'm so excited to see you today. The last time Damian and I tried to meet, I had to cancel it because I was literally I was just about to go into the waiting room, had my water like this, and I just knocked the whole entire bottle over the laptop. So yeah, luckily they fixed it within 24 hours. But yeah, £250 later, it was an expensive podcast. So welcome, it's lovely to see you. I start always with the podcast that I've done so far with how we met, and then we kind of go into the kind of transition of how you went through kind of youth theatre and then musician and then MDing and then obviously the absolute dream of running a Broadway show. So I just want to talk about, first of all, our roots, because we can't, I know there's a lot of BYTers that listen to this, but we cannot not mention our amazing youth theatre, because
I know
so many of us have been born from that, haven't we?
Absolutely. So it's such a special thing to have that shared history with people, because it was, I think, just such a formative time for us all, and was also a really unique place.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it was somewhere that we were all from such different backgrounds and places, but we were just united by our love of theatre, essentially. But what was incredible, I think, was the environment that we did it in, because we were all very young, but we were treated like adults throughout it. And we weren't talked down to, we weren't patronised. And I remember in one of our first shows...
what was your first show, Damien?
So the first show that we did together, and my first one there, was Annie. The second time you did it, Summer Project Annie.
Oh, okay. So I was Grace that time.
Yes, that's right. Okay. I was Judge Brandeis. So I'd actually seen BYT's Blitz and West Side Story before.
Yeah, I saw both of those. They were fabulous.
Yeah, and I really wanted, it was something that really appealed to me, but I just didn't get around to doing anything about it. And then I saw the advert for Summer Project. I was just like, 2 weeks, this sounds great. And went almost on a whim, but I remember that audition day so clearly.
And those who are listening who won't know what Summer Project is, it was 2 weeks. Your parents dropped you off at 9:45. They picked you up at 10 o'clock that night. Yeah. Nobody really knew what their children did, but they just watched this show 2 weeks later. I mean, it was incredible. The red tape I have to go through now with children being able to do certain amount of hours, and there was none of that then. And do you know what? We all survived. We all
had the best time.
We all had the most amazing time. And that's the crazy thing, isn't it? I miss those days, you know, I would love to have my children in a theatre from 10 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. How wonderful was that? It was so fun. And like going in and it being really sunny and then going out and playing in the lovely grounds of the Beck
Yeah.
Theatre. But then in the evening, going out and it being dark and you
Yeah.
going home in the dark, and how cool that was, being like 10 and being picked up at 10 o'clock at night, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. And I really remember going into the theatre for that first audition day, and there just being a queue from the front door of the theatre all the way to the back of the car park, because that first those first ones, we had like a cast of 250. And that's also unheard of these days, to have that volume involved. But the thing about it was, in that time, those 250 people were not there just to dress the stage or make up the numbers. Everyone was so involved in the show. Like, the creatives were so good at going, okay, we know you can do Annie or whatever with a much smaller cast, but we have 250 kids. So how are we going to do it with that volume of people? And that was what was so exciting about it.
It's funny, actually, because I had a podcast. Well, my first podcast was with Matt Sterling, and he also talked about the queue going around the theatre.
Yeah.
It absolutely was. And I remember, you know, similar thing, kind of going for Oliver, because I did the second one because I was too young to do Bugsy, but I obviously did Oliver. And then everyone after that, right up till I went to drama school. And the queue was quite overwhelming, wasn't it? It was like almost like, imagine those of you who are listening who've ever auditioned or ever seen like an open call for something like Les Mis. It was like that, wasn't it? And I'm not just dressing it up. It absolutely was like that, wasn't it?
And we'd do that day that sort of like we'd be there for 10 o'clock and you didn't know what time you would finish, because it was all sort of the morning was all sort of the dance calls, and you just have this auditorium full of people that would slowly rotate going down, and then sort of at about 2 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock, you'd know if you were staying on for a recall or not. And the buzz around that was just so humongous.
Yeah, it was. And then you know, if you were picked for like a principal, you were still there at like 5 o'clock, you know. And that's also like a real change of how parents, I mean, and I know you obviously are chairman of, are you still chairman of the youth theatre?
I am, yeah.
Fantastic. And you know, you probably deal with parents like I do, where, you know, parents need to know what time their child's being picked up, what they're being fed, how long are they going to be there for, what time their break is. You know, there was none of that. Parents dropped them off, they picked them up, and you know what? You had to queue for the phone box to phone your mum when you'd been auditioned. You know, there was no like mobile phones, there was no social media, you know, and that has come up on so many of my podcasts about, you know, that generation of you know, how we all met, but how those friendships were formed. And you know, it was really lovely. I know I saw a beautiful post on my sister, who's a very good friend of yours, and your post on Facebook a couple of weeks ago with you, Anna West, Susie Lavington, Grant Murphy, yourself, Alistair McAllister, you know, all these names that have all gone into the industry in completely different ways, but we're all still doing it, you know.
Completely, yeah. And that's the thing, sort of, so I think I did 5 summer projects being in them. Then when I got too old, I became part of the production team, so I did another 5. I only actually I was only a member of BYT for 3 years, hilariously, but then sort of stayed very connected to it. As I left to go to uni, my dad had become the treasurer after a year.
Oh, okay, I didn't.
He stayed for 10 years. As treasurer, by which time I'd been to uni, I'd lived in Edinburgh for 4 years, and then I moved back to London. So I rejoined the committee at that point. And then a year later, I took over as chairman. But the thing, so BYT is coming up to 40 years old soon. And my time as a member is a very small portion of that time. However, that period, I always say, just changed my life, because it gave me so much as a person, but also my closest friends now are still the ones that
I know.
And I've lived with them. I have employed people. I have been employed by people. We have gone through a lot of adventures, a lot of travel. I traveled across the world to see one of them. And it, there are times in our life that sometimes we don't see each other as much as we used to, but at the same time, sort of the moment we do, it all goes instantly back to how it was, and that's something really special.
It really is. And I'm not sure, I mean, I'd love to think that students feel like that when they come to me, but it's a very different way of working, now. We're running our show in May. I'm working on 5 shows at the moment. My brain is like crazy. But what our big show that we do in a theatre every 2 years, it's almost getting to a point now where it's unachievable because the amount of red tape around it, and I'm sure you see this all the time now with chaperone licenses and boppers and all these things that we never ever had all those years ago. We just had parents that would help and they would be a chaperone. But obviously that is just a very, very different way of work, and in a lot of ways great that we're in that place that we protect children in a way that was never ever really done. But on the other side, that fun and that kind of, I can't really explain what the word is. It's kind of not sporadic.
It was amazing, wasn't it, that whilst we were in a very fixed structure of something, but it was loose. Those projects were so meticulously organised because they needed to be. There was so much going on. So there was a very strict framework there, but within it, we felt like we had so much freedom.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that same sense exists for people now. Doing it.
And also, I think it was really lovely that, people who, and this has always been the case with the youth theatre, and this is very much the way I run my school. It was always very inclusive. It did not matter where you came from, what background you were. It did not matter even then. And there were people who were gay, who were straight, who were transgender. Nobody cared. There was none of this stigma around any of those genders or anything like that. We just all loved theatre. We'd all go there, and we all were friends.
And we just got on with it.
I never remember having arguments with anybody or not getting on with anybody. I just don't. Actually, in the industry, Jesus, I had some arguments, but it was just never like that, was it? And so when you transitioned out, and I think it's amazing you're still chairman. I love that. When you transitioned out of, you went to uni, you went to Oxford, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Amazing.
I thought that I wanted to become an actor around that time, but I knew that I wanted to do an English degree. And so my plan was I'll do that, and then I will, then I'll go on and do a postgrad or something. And so I went off, did my English degree, came to see you on in 42nd Street.
Oh yeah.
At the Apollo Leisure Theatre in Oxford.
Oh, and that's because you were at Oxford University.
Yeah. So I was there, and it was my first term, I think. And then Hayley called and said that you were on that night. And so I came down and watched. Hilarious. But then whilst I was at uni, I discovered directing, where essentially since the beginning of the year, someone on my course and we kept talking about how Guys and Dolls is one of the best written musicals ever. Periodically we would just talk about, if we were doing it, this is what we'd do. And one night we talked through the entire show. As you do. Exactly. And then we're like, why are we not actually doing this show? The next day, it still seemed like a good idea. And the way the drama scene works at Oxford at that point. So
you were doing drama at Oxford as well?
I was doing English, and then I doing a lot of extracurricular drama whilst there. And they had one central drama society that united all the colleges. But I felt it was a bit sniffy. There were 2 spaces in Oxford. One is the old fire station, one is the Burton Taylor studio. And 8 weeks of the year, they would be given 8 weeks of each term, they would be given to the university for people to put in bids for week-long shows. And so we put in a bid to do Guys and Dolls, and we got it.
And then you were like, we've got to actually do this.
And I mean, it was incredible because you basically had this professional theatre. It was probably about 250, 300 seats. And you had to put together a company and, put a budget together, find a set designer, find all these different elements to go to creating the show, plus cast it all amongst your students and rehearse it.
As well as doing your English degree.
Exactly, yeah. And so I very much leaned on summer project training, and my method was, right, we will do the show in the 3rd week of term, and essentially that gives us 3.5 weeks to rehearse it. And we can do that around whatever else we're doing. So we did rehearse every day, but sometimes it would be 2 hours, sometimes it might be all day. And you'd just make it work around who you'd cast in the show. And so as soon as we started doing that, I was like, oh, I really like this. I think
Were you directing that?
Yeah. Okay. I was like, I feel like this is a bit more me. And before we got to it being on, 2 things happened. I discovered the musical Honk, which was playing at the National at the time. And I just sort of, before I saw it, I listened to it and I read the script. And I had this really incredible sensation happen that as I was reading it and listening, I could just instantly visualize how I wanted to do it. And I was just like, oh, that is such a strong feeling. And before we knew it, and before Guys and Dolls had been on, we found ourselves in a production meeting planning Honk for our next show. And around this time, Cameron McIntosh came to Oxford to give a talk on producing. And I hung around until he was standing by himself after the talk, went over to talk to him about his shows. We talked for about 15 minutes. And then when he was needed to go, I just said, do you do any kind of placements? And he said to me, write to my office, put this name at the top, and it will end up on my desk, and I'll remember you. And I kind of thought, oh yeah, that's just a line. But I did it the next day.
That's incredible.
And a week later, I had a letter back inviting me to the first day of his new musical, The Witches of Eastwick, at Drury Lane.
Damien, that's so bad.
And essentially, he brought me back at all the key points of the rehearsal process. So first day, first run through, tech and so on. And it was incredible because until that point, I'd never really contemplated how a musical becomes a musical, how it becomes that finished thing.
Yeah.
And that was such a fascinating show. Like it kept being
fabulous,
restructured, reorganized.
Was that with Maria Friedman?
Yes. Yeah. Maria Friedman, Joanna Riding, Luciana. Gorgeous people. And so that was so fascinating. It kind of gave me more of, oh, this other side of the table is really interesting. Alongside that, Guys and Dolls happened, brilliant. Honk happened, we got a slot to do that. And it was great. And it felt really free to do sort of like a very new musical at that time that people didn't know. So we were completely able to just do our stamp on it. And on the Friday...
Was that on at the National? Did John go to the National?
So yeah, it opened at the National. And that was that was the biggest production. It had also been at the Watermill. That was it. And on the Friday night, just as we were about to start, 2 people came through the door and were rushing up to their seats. And they came and sat down next to me. And all the way up, I was watching them just going, I recognise you. I recognise you. Why do I recognise you? And literally, as they sat down, the house lights went down. And I was like, oh, fuck. It's George Stiles and Anthony Drew, the writers.
No.
So I was like, oh, my God, petrified as they're watching this. In the interval, stayed very still, trying to listen to what they were saying. At the end, it was very clear they liked it. So I introduced myself. And they were lovely. They came and met all of the company, everything. And then they actually arranged for the national production was going out on tour 4 months later. Okay. And so they arranged for me to have a placement on that, shadowing Julia Mackenzie, the director. So sort of, within directing my first 2 things, sort of, I've had these massive opportunities, both of which were so interesting and gave me such insight to it. And so I was like, I definitely want to I want to work in theatre. This is me. However, the slight flaw in this plan was I'm now going into my penultimate term of uni, and I had been in a few shows before I started directing, and basically I was like, I've got a lot of work to do before my finals. So I can't really think about post-uni life at the moment. So you know what? I'm gonna decide that I'm gonna put my head down, finish this work, and then I will have a year out during which I will do anything, and I'll work out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life at that point.
Okay, and just kind of going back slightly, I mean, Cameron Mackintosh coming to Oxford, which wasn't even a drama degree, is very unusual, isn't it? I mean, you can't even get him to, a drama school.
No, absolutely. So, he invests money into drama there, or at least he did. I'm not sure if he still does, but that's partly how the theatres had these 8-week runs, because they were professional theatres, but they would happily give 24 weeks of the year up to the university.
That's amazing.
And he also would appoint a professor of, I can't remember the fancy title it had, but different people would come and be there for a year. I'm not actually sure what they did in that
but thing.
They were there in some capacity. But he sort of gave a lot of support in different ways. His foundation gave money to productions and so on. So there was a sort of a gentle link there.
And did you feel like you were kind of, I mean, you were almost being pulled in 3 directions. There's your essay, your final dissertation, I guess, because you're in your final term. You're directing, because Guys and Dolls and Honk and all of that, and let's be frank here. When you're in a show and you're directing a show or you're in a show, there is nothing else around that can be distracted. And then you've also got, do I still want to be an actor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, great. Yeah. But your brain must have just been like, what do I do?
Yeah, it was a lot of shabs, and that's why I kind of made that thing of just cut to it, just do anything, and then what will be. You'll work this out. But you just need to remove some of these things going on. However, that turned out to make life more complicated, because the week after I decided that, suddenly I became aware of a job at a boarding school in Edinburgh that was looking for someone to teach English with a specific interest in drama for a year. Now, I'd never been to Scotland at this point. We were vaguely planning on lots of the people that I did shows with whilst I was there. We were all leaving Oxford at the same time, and we were vaguely planning on taking one of our shows to the Edinburgh Festival that year as a final fling together. But that was it. My entire knowledge of Scotland. But I found myself getting this job. So I did. It was a very hectic and emotional summer, because essentially I finished at Oxford, 3 years there, moved out, lots of feelings about that. Did we did take a show to the festival for the first 2 weeks.
What did you take?
A musical review called Closer Than Ever.
Okay, yeah.
And so it was like 8 of us that had all done so many shows. We were really good friends, and we were all sort of like, oh my goodness, this is our final bit together before we're all in the real world. So that was immense. And first taste of Edinburgh Festival, gorgeous.
Yeah, amazing.
I then flew back to do summer projects, and I went straight from the airport to the Beck to do 2 weeks of summer project.
And were you directing that?
I was assistant MD on that one to Tim. And then the day after project finished, I packed up and moved to Edinburgh. And so it's like, what is life?
Yeah.
And I'd only intended that to be a year. Within the first 2 weeks, I thought, you know what, this is nice. I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would.
Did you live in Edinburgh?
I did. So it was a boarding school. I lived on campus. Okay. So I kind of thought, I had first year GCSE and first year A level, and I thought it might be quite nice to do 2 years and just see them through. And this was, it was a very sporty school. Sport was very high on the agenda everywhere. They had a theatre, but they did one production in it. The rest of the time it was an exam hall and so on. Yeah. And through a few coincidences, at the end of that first year, they made me head of drama. So I thought, okay, I might stay here for a little longer. And I ended up staying for 4 years. By the time I left, there was a production every term. Drama was the most popular extracurricular activity. I did Guys and Dolls again, and had 55 of the rugby team doing the Crap Shooters ballet. The last show that I did there, I was just really interested in doing showing them that it wasn't all about sort of your typical school fare. And so we did so much variety of things. So I think in my last year, I did Joseph with the junior school. A special drama group devised their own play. We had a sixth form pantomime. I did 12 Angry Men in the round with
it's so different.
them. And then leaving, we also took Guys and Dolls to the Fringe as a little one as well, just to see off that time. So it was really great to do, and I got to do so much drama in many ways.
And in Scotland, it's because I worked, I don't know if you know this, but I worked in Scotland for a long time.
Yes.
And it's a very, very small pool of actors there. It's very strange. Yeah. They kind of use the same people pretty much for everything. And going there as, you know, as an English person, sometimes it's quite daunting because it's very, very closed shop there, isn't it? Mm. So when you kind of break in, they tend to, you know, if you're a good company member and you work hard and they like you and all of that, you then just tend to keep working there. Yeah. Yeah. Which kind of happened to me. I was there for like nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
I almost couldn't get back to London, you know. But yeah, it's a very, very different working environment in Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the joyous thing was sort of, as well, sort of, it gave me really long holidays every time, and I would fill them with working in a theatre. So I'd always come back and do the youth theatre show in the Easter holiday. I'd generally do panto around Christmas, and then the summer I kept taking my own shows to the Edinburgh Festival, and it was during at the end of my third year, I thought, I know I don't want to be a teacher for the rest of my life. I definitely want to move into theatre. This is the bit that is really driving me, but I'm not quite sure how to achieve it. So I'll stay for another year. And then that summer, a producer saw my Edinburgh show and offered me a directing job. And I was like, oh no, what do I do now? And thankfully, it was to work on a long-running show, and they were very, very good. And they basically said they'd hold it open for me to join later. So I did so I handed in my notice immediately, stayed for my 4th year, then left. And that kind of put me into the path of theatre forever. But that time at the school was really good and gave me a lot of opportunities.
And a lot of grounding, I guess, because teaching GCSE, I've taught GCSE dance, and GCSE, when you're going through all of that, it's quite intense, like the marking process and the, seeing different works and, maybe works that you perhaps wouldn't, I like yourself, my love is always musicals, but, for me, looking at different works with like Leah Anderson and Martha Graham and, the Chumleys and like all these different, really different, Merce Cunningham, all these different, directors and choreographers that I would never have even been exposed to had I have not taught GCSE.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So that's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it gave you a lot of different things. I was also living in as sort of an assistant housemaster, so a lot of welfare things as well, and experiencing that. And just also sort of really proud of the achievements with the boys, the pupils, and what they did.
Was it an all-boys school then?
It was an all-boys school.
So how did you cast?
We would import from a girls' school to pair with them for productions, which was fun. But a few years later, something really lovely happened. It was about 5 years after I left, and I was in a bar in London late at night, and suddenly someone came running up to me, and it was the person who had been the lead actor in several of my shows at the school. I had been his housemaster twice as well, and he had just that day graduated from RADA. And he was very lovely and said sort of a lot of it was down to the productions and the work that he did at the school that really got it into his mind that that's what he wanted to do. So that was a very nice, like, full circle moment.
That's so lovely, because you find that we are at that point in our lives, and I know I'm a lot older than you, but we are at that point in our lives where we're inspiring the next generation of actors, and that's really exciting, isn't it? And really beautiful that we can share our, and let's face it, between both of us, we're very, very experienced, and to be able to share that with the next generation is so wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it's the same feeling sort of being chair of the youth theatre now and seeing later generations sort of experience part of what we did, and being able to preserve that for them and make sure.
I mean, I've just booked my tickets to come and see Footloose.
Yay!
And I always feel a little bit sad going back. Because I just would love to just have that little snippet of my life back, because it was so wonderful, But anyway, that is all amazing. And I think what's so crazy about being in theatre is there are certain things that happen that then lead on to other things. And clearly, had you have never have gone and approached Cameron McIntosh that day, or had you have never taken that job and taught GCSE and A level, had you never have created these wonderful relationships with your casts, which I know you do, and a lot of your casts are very, very, speak very, very highly of you. Had you not have done all of those things, you may have just carried on and just done your postgrad, and that would have been it.
Completely, yeah. It could have been
but then you retrained in recent years.
I did, yes. So once I moved into directing properly, I did a year and a half of working in comedy and different shows associated with that. Then I would
speak to me about that. I don't know what that is.
So I immediately went into the show News Review, and directed that for 9 different seasons. So it's it's the longest live running comedy show in the world.
Okay.
And
that's in London, yeah?
Yeah. And it's a sketch show based around the latest news. So you are updating it every week, sometimes daily, depending on what is happening. It's fast paced, it's crazy, and really exhilarating to do because you're having to be on the front foot all the time.
So what would you create scripts and
so at the time I did it, there'd be a mixture. There was a lot of writers that would just send in material. You'd kind of go through it, select the ones that you want to do, work on it with the actors, cast of 4, and then occasionally, either because you don't have any material or a story is broken so quickly that you need to put something in, or you guys might just have an idea of something, you would create some of the material yourself as well. Mixture of songs and sketches. And so it was really, really great, and a lot of fun to do. So I did that. I also started working on a show which stayed with me over different periods of life called Shakespeare for Breakfast, which your sister has done as well, with me, which essentially its brief is fun, silly Shakespeare. So you'd basically take a title and then rip it off enormously.
Did Hayley do that with you, or is that? Oh, she did. Okay.
And so I was doing a lot of those shows, and then I went on a new writing scheme at the Young Vic, and I did a year of lots of new writing plays at London Fringe venues. And that was really interesting to just kind of get a very different vein of work and sort of properly delve into storytelling methods as well. Then I was really hankering to do a musical again.
Going back to those roots.
Yes. So I had this brilliant year, 2010, where I was assistant on the UK tour of Oklahoma, which was my first show with UK Productions. And I also was directing the London revival of Tick, Tick, Boom. I got an agent for my directing. I had
that's something I didn't know.
Yeah.
You get an agent for directing?
Yeah. So I had all these different projects going on, and it was just like the best year, and it really felt, yes, things are paying off. And then 2011 was not a good year, and I kept getting to the final 2 for resident jobs, but not getting it because I didn't have the experience. And I was like, well, how am I going to get the experience if I don't get the job? And like going back and forth like this. And 2012 was a little bit better, but still sort of, I just felt like I wasn't progressing anywhere. I was lucky enough that I had a good amount of things that I could do each year. And so I was getting to be creative, but nothing felt like it was driving my career.
But I guess you hadn't really stopped.
No. Yeah.
And that's very, in our industry, it is incredibly unusual. We always have those times where we're out of work and they're tough, they are tough.
Absolutely. And so I was very lucky in that period, but I just took the decision to sort of not exactly take a step back, but take a side step. And I did a master's degree at Arts Educational, which was this very unique course that doesn't exist anymore. They did it for 4 years. I was year 3. It was called Creative Practice in Musical Theatre, and it was for directors, choreographers, musical directors, maximum of 6 in a year group. And it was not to teach you how to do these things. You had to have a certain level of them already, but it was there to make you really look at your method and your process and what your kind of work was. And it had come up in conversation for me a year or 2 before, but it didn't felt the right time to do it then. But going into it, I felt, no, this really feels right, and I could throw myself at it as well. And it was the best thing because it really made me look and develop my own style. as a director.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I know exactly what my take on things, what my method is, how I would approach things. It meant I could talk about it a lot better. And it also introduced me to so many
different people.
Exactly. And so I came out of there, and actually, having been obsessed with the thought that I needed to be a resident and that's how my career would further, actually sort of that was the least of my concerns at that point. And I got a load of directing projects solely just for me to do, which was really great. And then out of the midst of that, I then did land a resident job on The Kite Runner, which was back in with UK Productions again. And
I didn't know Peter had produced that. I didn't know.
And so this was the and it was really great because I've just been saying I really fancy doing a very serious play, and then it sort of popped up, and it was going into it'd been on tour a couple of times. It had done a West End stint, and it was transferring to another West End theatre, and there was a cast change where half the cast were new were coming in, and it was just a really great time to go into it because it meant there was quite a big reshuffle happening with the show, and unusually for a show that already existed, I actually got quite a lot of creative input into the evolution of it at that point. And then it's been a show that has stayed with me for many different iterations. I think I've worked with 8 different casts, I think.
Oh, wow. So how long was that? Over what period was that?
So that first one I did for 15 months. So a West End stint, then a UK tour with a cast change halfway through as well. And so...
Was that all UK productions?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then I left, I finished that, and a week later started as resident on Calendar Girls, the musical, and did 15 months on that. Then I went with a slight overlap. I actually left Calendar Girls early. I should have been there for 18 months, but I left at 15. And I joined Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
I didn't know you did that. I love that show so
very
much.
Fun. So I had 2 weeks overlap with finishing Calendar Girls and starting Priscilla, which was very, very fun for the different types of shows. And I was actually with Priscilla full time, so I toured the country with it everywhere. But whilst we were doing that, about 6 months in, the Kite Runner came back for a revival. And so I was doubling up for rehearsals with it and doing a couple of days a week with it. However, I did my last rehearsal with them. It went off, opened. It did 3 days in this country as like previews. It went off to Dubai for 2 weeks and then came back. And it was in Richmond. I couldn't see it that week. I was going to see it the next week. And then the world shut down. So I did not see that production in a theatre. And everything went quiet in the world of theatre for a while.
And what did you do during that time? Because I guess that was it. No work. That was it.
Yeah. So it was a strange time. It's very funny looking back on it because near the beginning, there were aspects of it that I was, it's so nice to be at home because essentially I'd done 3.5 years of touring. And so I'd barely been at home. There's a lot of people that I hadn't really had time with for a long while. And in truth, I was feeling quite burnt out at that point.
Of course.
So the positive part of that time was it allowed me to reset myself a bit. and recover, and just realign myself, things, and not expecting it to go on for as long as it did, though.
I mean, financially, how did you cope during that time? Did you get any grants or anything?
Very little, because I was still essentially self-employed. I couldn't be furloughed. I did qualify for the particular grant that we got, but it wasn't an accurate. The way it was calculated was not an accurate reflection of things. I did a few bits of teaching online. I would also I did quite a few talks on stuff like for drama schools, or different institutions, and that kind of gave me bits and pieces to carry through, kind of thing, and just kind of muddle through.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's so funny actually, because I just had today my Santander. I almost want to put it in a frame. My Santander final loan repayment has been paid. And, as a business during that time, it was so hard. And I'm not a technical person. None of us are in theatre. We're all a bit like, what do we do? And, I remember somebody saying to me, who was a PT at the time, I'm doing this thing called Zoom. And on Wednesday, I launched my PT business on Zoom. And I was like, what's Zoom? Never even heard of it. And then by the following Thursday, we were running classes on Zoom. And, we did nearly 2,000 classes on Zoom during that time. And I have just paid back my £50,000 bounce back loan. And it nearly killed me. I was in savings. I paid all my staff full during that time, which I'm very proud of myself for doing, because I know what it's like in theatre, and I know there were times for me when it was very hard, and there was no money, and a lot of my staff were just having people just saying, well, that's it, sorry, I haven't got any money. So, I was like, look, you're still teaching. At the moment, people are still paying fees. Okay, I've slashed my fees in half just to keep the kids going, but you are still teaching, so I'm going to pay you what you were normally paid. So, but that's taken me 5 years to pay back £50,900 a month. I mean, it's killing amount of money, and we got very little, didn't we, as self-employed people? We really didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very strange time.
So
everyone.
when obviously lockdown happened, we all kind of, ate too much, drank too much, tried to do classes on Zoom, all of that. What was your first thing out of that when we started, the country started to go back?
So amazingly, pretty much as soon as the ban lifted, I did 2 shows straight away, and it was really funny and bizarre. You were almost like, how do I do this again?
Here we go.
So because they were both, I'm just trying to pinpoint when they came. They were both in May 21. So literally pretty much the first opportunity you could do it. And so one was a good friend of mine who was one of my Shakespeare for Breakfast cast, had written a solo show, comedy show. So I directed that, and it was lovely. It was basically 2 of us just sort of,
how lovely,
doing something really unique. And then 2 ex-BYTers had written their own children's show.
Who was that?
Amy and Bethany Perry. And so I directed that for them at the Tabard in Chiswick with Harlem Week. So it played all of half term for the kids, and it was like a mini musical, and so on. And so it was really lovely. And they opened a day apart from each other, one in the morning, one in the evening. And it
of course
was
they did.
And it was just like so funny of going sort of like, there's been absolutely nothing, and now I am opening 2 shows in 2 days.
In a day.
But I remember sort of just sort of, in one sense, you sort of adjusted back into that route quite easily. But I remember the real moment of it was for Don't Tell Grandma, the kids show, of the moment that we opened the house. And I took a photo of it, and I remember it was some I put it on Facebook, and I remember it being something like, I am standing in an auditorium holding a notebook. There is house music playing, and an audience is coming in. And it was just, that moment was just like, oh my goodness, that was a point that I never thought I'd get to again.
Yeah, and so, I totally understand what you meant, because when we went back, and obviously for us, we weren't allowed to sing because of the particles transferring across from child to child. The children were on cones, so they were 2.5 was it 2? I can't even remember. Was it 2 meters apart? Yeah, something like that. The kids were on cones, and I walked past one day, and the kids were singing Wouldn't It Be Lovely? Of all things. And it's so funny, isn't it? I totally remember that. And I just stood there, and I started crying and going, oh my God, I can hear singing again, and I can hear music, and I can hear the kids laughing. And you get teary thinking about it now, but it was so emotional. So I can imagine, a massive theatre and it being filled again, and that magic. How amazing that must have felt, Damian.
It was very special.
Really special. So then the Kite Runner went to Broadway.
Yes. So this is all around
shortly after that, or?
So during the...
So I'm just going to say that again. Then the Kite Runner went to Broadway.
I know, yeah. It's very surreal. So during the pandemic, I thought, there is a chance maybe I won't work in theatre again. I just won't get that opportunity. So how am I going to do this life thing? So I got really into the idea of working in TV at that time. And I was chasing a lot of thoughts about working in serial drama. And I'm getting quite far in the process. Like, I've got a voicemail on my phone that I refuse to delete, just from the sheer surrealness of it, where I'd been having a lot of conversations with people. I'd been writing various things, and I had cold written an email to the exec of EastEnders at the time, and I'd been somewhere that had no service, and I came out and my phone beeped, and I had this voicemail saying sort of, "Hi Damian, it's John Sen, the executive producer of EastEnders. I got your email and I'd love to meet you." And I was like, this is mental.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of exciting things were happening and looking like it might go quite in an extraordinary way. And then in the midst of this, back in those Kite Runner rehearsals in 2020, Martin Dodge, head of UK productions,
lovely Martin, we love him.
Yeah,
he's such a lovely man.
He'd said to me, "I've got something I want to talk to you about. Can we have lunch sometime?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." No idea what he wanted to talk about, and we waited 1.5 years for that lunch, but we did go, and he completely surprised me by offering me a job, which was a new job. It didn't exist, as artistic producer and general manager for UK productions.
Amazing.
I was like, that's a little bit bigger than I was expecting you to come out with. So, I took the job after a bit of going back and forth. So since then, since June,
when was that?
June 21. So since then, I've I work full time for UK Productions, kind of overseeing all of the shows. And so amidst that, there had been plans for Kite Runner to go to America, which initially was going to be in conjunction with a UK production, and then it changed to something else. But then the pandemic actually freed up some buildings, so the plan became for it to go straight to Broadway. And so I found myself flying out to New York in 22 to be associate director on the Broadway production of The Kite Runner. Now, it was incredibly exciting, very surreal for numerous reasons, but also this sort of collision of things happened to make it all the more so. So the time we were going over to start it was just around the Queen's Jubilee, so end of May 22. And due to that Jubilee and the double bank holiday that existed, we got to that week and I was the only member of the creative team that had a visa to go over. So I flew over on the day that we were all supposed to, the Friday before starting rehearsals on the Monday, but was the only one. So
aren't you worrying?
I started rehearsals for this Broadway show on day one with just me there from the British creative team. The others were on Zoom for a bit. This was also the first time we'd done it with a brand new cast across the board. Like, so everyone was new. Also hadn't met them before this because we did the auditions on Zoom. And so sort of, there's a lot of newness going on.
Yeah.
And just me there. So start rehearsals. Giles, the director, joined us over there on day 3. Now, I had always been going to fly back to the UK late Friday for Anna West's wedding. And so we just decided I'd keep running rehearsals for that week and then I'd fly back for the weekend, and that would be when Giles took over properly. So first week happens, all good. I think by this point we've got the musical director over. The movement director has not arrived yet. I fly back to the UK Friday and I land first thing Saturday morning, like 6 a.m. And I turn my phone on to get a message that Giles, the director, has just tested positive for COVID.
Oh my God.
So I do the wedding, fly back on the Monday.
You must have been so jet lagged.
Yeah, it was a strange time.
God.
And then had to sort of like this worrying half an hour where I had to do an emergency PCR test to check that I didn't have it. Having been with Giles, having done 2 international flights and a wedding. Thankfully I did not have it. So then go back into rehearsals. But Giles didn't manage to get released from isolation until the penultimate day in the rehearsal room. So all of a sudden, sort of during this period, I was kind of in a slightly unique position in what we were doing. And Giles was on Zoom for some of it, but it was just a very strange process to then sort of suddenly be in charge of it, whilst also on Broadway, and doing sort of and fitting in with sort of the American way of doing things and so on. And some of them, it's just like things that the most normal one is obviously you'd walk into a room, someone would come in and you go, "You okay?" And after a few days, our lead actress just said to me, "Just so you know, it really freaks me out every time you ask me that question, because I'm like, what are you expecting me to answer? Like, am I needing to tell you my deep inner feelings about how I am? Is this sort of like part of the directing method?" I'm going, no, it's just the way we say hello. That's it.
That's mad.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
So I was there in New York for 12 weeks.
Amazing.
Living in Midtown. It was gorgeous. And yeah, it was wonderful. It was an incredible experience.
And I remember seeing a lovely post where your mum and dad went to see you.
Yeah.
Oh, the lovely, lovely, lovely parents. How wonderful was that?
So yes, it was all great, and I got to see so many shows and meet so many great people. And then I went back twice more whilst the show was on for like a week, 10 days at a time. And what was lovely about, I'd been to New York a couple of times before, but just for 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
And being there for so long, and with a purpose of being there, I wasn't just a tourist.
Yeah.
It was really nice to just kind of get a sense of sort of the community there and actually what it means to be there when you're not rushing around trying to fit a million things into a day. You can just do normal things there. And so it's always felt, whenever I've gone back since, sort of like there is an element of returning home again.
How nice is that? That's so lovely. And oh my goodness, I mean, I could sit here and I say this on every one of my podcasts, but literally this one is very special because of our background and because of how we know each other and us knowing each other in life since we were children. So it's very special. Where do you see yourself going? Like, I mean, there's not really much done.
Well, I think what I've always loved about sort of my job is the variety. And that's really good. And the fact that, so in these last few months, I have gone from a mass panto season, 11 pantos, that fun, silly aspects, to a really serious play that we have on at the moment, The Beekeeper of Aleppo, to a tour with Coronation Street, and that it's just it's a lovely lot of variety, and so I would hope that mix of projects keeps coming. I think in the last few years I've been lucky enough to sort of have a bit of crossover with TV life, by doing shows with Coronation Street, with Neighbours, both here and in Australia, with James Martin, the chef. And that's given me a lovely little taste of things in the TV world. And I think a little bit more of that would be quite exciting. And then sort of, so just had last Sunday the WhatsOnStage Awards, which sort of I've been doing for 17 years somehow, and watching that grow from this little show to now sort of selling out at the Palladium with all these mammoth personalities is something that's really great. So it's lovely to have, I think, sort of some of those cornerstones that sort of are things that you come back to year after year. You get to expand, you get to grow. Same with BYT, the fact that that's a bit of a constant, but there are these other things that can come and go. And the Kite Runner is coming back next year, so another little outing on that will be great.
Oh, I definitely can't see that. 100%. Where's that going?
It's going to be around the UK.
Oh, lovely. Well, I mean, we could chat all day, but I will hopefully pick up with you in a couple of weeks when I come and see you. Can't wait to see that. And please send my love to Martin and Peter, won't you?
Of course, yes.
Send them a big, big Shelley smile and a big hug from me. Damian, it's been so wonderful having you here today. It really has. I've loved every single second of it. It really has been a really, really special podcast. I hope everyone really enjoys this one. And, incredible your career. And I really, really wish you every success and it continue to be as fruitful as it has been in all these years. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. You take care, my darling. See you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, darling. Bye. Thank you for listening to Treading the Boards to Business. We hope we added some sparkle to your day. Please like, subscribe and share our channel. And if you know of any lovers who may want to share their story, do get in touch. We hope the rest of your day is filled with glamour and glitter.